I want to talk about this Lane Kiffin thing because everybody's talking about it. And I want to get everybody's opinion because, it's all going to be based upon your perspective. Dan has been, and Jason have really been in the media longer than I have because I'm a coach and because I've been around college athletics a little bit more intimately. I may have a different perspective. And Sam is, again, no disrespect to you, Sam, but really more of a fan than somebody who's covered in the media. He has his own perspective. Let me share with you mine. Okay, Lane Kiffin is new head coach at LSU. He's no longer at Ole Miss. He won't coach Ole Miss in the college football playoff. Unlike LeBron James, I can quote The Godfather. It's not one of my favorite movies. It is a great all-time movie. This is the business we've chosen, right? This is the business we've chosen. And the voice of reason comes from Nick Saban, which is the college football and scholastic calendar is so out of whack that it puts people in these positions which are unenviable. I mean, they're first world problems, right? Are you going to go from making, I don't know, $10 million a year at Ole Miss to making $13 million a year at LSU? I mean, again, let's have respect for most people. Like, you're coaching a college football team for $13 million a year. That's a pretty good gig. And the reason that you can't wait if you're LSU is because, well, now people are putting together their rosters for next year. One, who do you want to keep? And more importantly, who do you want to go poach from other SEC schools or other lower level schools in the portal? Could you wait a couple of weeks? You could. But now you're to the point where if you don't pull the trigger, you're getting further and further and further behind. And with every day in which you don't hire Lane Kiffin, the reason you do it now is you're like, look, if he coaches Ole Miss in the playoffs and he doesn't have a signed contract with LSU and they win the thing, he ain't coming. So I understand how all this stuff works. If it was me, I don't believe I would leave. I don't know, but I don't believe I would leave. The logic behind it for me is, if you have so much fun building it at a place like Ole Miss, is it harder to rebuild it and to continue it on at Ole Miss than it is LSU? Sure. But you're making the type of wealth at either place, which you're not going to spend. And you can build a legacy at a place as opposed to you go to LSU and you're never going to be saving. You might not match up to Les Miles. And Ed Orgeron has a special place in people's hearts. And Ed Orgeron had probably the best college football team we've ever seen. So you're chasing after all three of those guys. And all right, what happens when you catch them? Whereas at Ole Miss, you can be the guy. But it's a personal choice. And it's not like Lane Kiffin just got to Ole Miss last year, flipped it, and left. He's been there 6 years. They've had good runs. The only thing about this that doesn't sit well with anybody, I believe, is the timing of it and the sort of public discussion as to which job he should take or should he stay. I also don't blame Keith Carter for not letting him coach. I totally understand why he wanted to coach. And if it was me and I'm the athletic director, I let him coach. I just do. I try and win a national championship at Ole Miss. Why? Because it's going to be really, really hard to get back there ever again. And all you want to do is put yourself in the best possible position to get there. And the way to do that is to keep him as the head coach, even if he's recruiting for a different school. There's no reason that you can't sit down with him and go, hey, we're gonna talk about all these guys and the portal and who you can go after and who you can't go after and what you're going to get, what you're going to do. That may be uncomfortable to some of you, or maybe it was uncomfortable to Ole Miss. I think that's the one way in which you can protect yourself if you're Ole Miss, because your fear is he wins the national championship and then anybody with eligibility comes and joins him in LSU, which may well happen anyway. But that's your fear. Dan Byer, you've been covering college football for a long time. Plus, you grew up a college football fan. Wisconsin alum, but an Ohio State fan. What's your feelings on Lane Kiffin and everything that's taken place here. Can we get Dan?
It's my. Sorry, I have a little frog in my throat. I don't think he had any choice. I think that he had to leave. I thought there was at one point where he could maybe do both, and then when the statement came out the week prior to the Egg Bowl saying that an announcement was going to be made on Saturday, I felt that said enough that he was likely gone from Ole Miss. And I just didn't think that situation would be tenable. I don't think anybody would have been happy in that situation. I think that Lane Kiffin's going to be blamed for whatever happens with Ole Miss, but I just don't think that it was tenable for him to stay, and he had to leave for LSU now.
What are your thoughts on him not wanting to coach but not being allowed to coach?
Yeah, I get it. I think that it would be the best of both worlds, but I don't think LSU would want him to coach. Heck, they're paying his bonuses for whatever Ole Miss does, so he's not missing out on the money. I understand why Ole Miss wouldn't want him there. CBS Sports did a deep dive into what has transpired over the last few weeks, and for as much as we had heard that, the players wanted Kiffin there, and that they were sticking up for their head coach, that wasn't necessarily the case. And then the threats that were made by Kiffin on stripping the whole coaching staff and bringing them to LSU if they didn't let him coach, I don't think everybody at Ole Miss loved what went on for the last 3 weeks. It was kind of a soap opera. It was a soap opera.
Here's Bill Cowher, former Steelers head coach, on CBS talking about what Kiffin did.
Let's just talk about Lane Kiffin's decision and what he asked in his statement, that he was denied the opportunity to coach the Ole Miss team through the course of the playoffs. And he was denied by the AD. And I would say, why would you even ask that question? Why would an AD let a coach who made a decision that he wanted to go to LSU and not stay at Ole Miss coach my players and use my coaches and tell them for the next month why they should be joining him at LSU? Totally understand. I would just say thank you, Lane, and goodbye. And that being said, if indeed he decides to take other coaches with him, I would just say any player that goes to play for Lane Kiffin, just understand one thing. It's not about the program. It's about Lane Kiffin. Because he don't care about the players that he just went through a season with, a special season, players he's had for 4 years, with an opportunity to go to the playoffs. He's decided to take them and not only leave them, which I get, okay, you want to do that, but now you're going to take offensive coaches with you and destroy the program.
And deplete the program.
Deplete the program and the dreams of these young men who you said that you want to be there and you want to do it with. But if I can't do it, I'm not going to let you do it yourself.
Yeah, I think Bill Cowher is living in a fantasy world, to be completely honest with you. Look, at the same time that we're being critical of Lane Kiffin, pick coach that's been fired after, Deshaun Foster was fired 3 games into his second season at UCLA. Second season. Mike Gundy won for 19 out of 21 years, got fired 3 games in. Heck, Kentucky just fired Mark Stoops. Right? Just fired Mark Stoops. At Kentucky. And if you go back to last year, the start of the year, here's a guy that he had consecutive losing seasons at the end of his run. Okay? He finished 2-10 this year, 5-7, 5-7. But took Kentucky to places they've never been before. You're acting like there's some loyalty from schools. Again, do I owe a debt of gratitude to Josh Moon, to Mike Alexander. Josh is my athletic director. Mike Alexander is my chancellor. They gave me an opportunity when nobody did not. That will go a long, long way if I'm ever fortunate to be put in this situation. And I do think I owe them a degree of loyalty because they gave me a chance when others did not. The reality to it is that, one of the reasons that we're able to have any money at Green Bay was Sundance Wicks' buyout was $750,000. That money was huge for us to balance the books. It's not always a terrible thing when a guy leaves. But if schools aren't loyal to coaches, what are you even what is Bill Cowher even talking about? What world is he living in? He's living in a studio he worked for the Steelers. They've been overly loyal to coaches for years. That's not the reality of college athletics. They just haven't. Again, I point out Mike Gundy 2 years ago had one of the greatest turnaround seasons ever. Ever. They lost to like South Alabama, like second game. End up winning 10 games, got to the Big 12 championship game. Right? Everybody else ends up spending. They get caught behind. They have a bad year last year. This year his quarterback gets hurt third series of the season, and thing falls apart. They lose 3 games. He gets fired. Like, what world are you living in, Bill? Stop being some TV guy in New York that's like, wow, these kids he's recruited for 4 years. How many Ole Miss players have been there for 4 years? How many? Look, I'm not saying I don't believe in loyalty. My goal at Green Bay is to coach guys for 4 years or 5 years. But hey, Bill, have you ever heard of the transfer portal of NIL? Right? Trust me, what happens is you sit there and you sit down a kid and you're like, hey, man, I'm all in on your career. You're not ready now. I'm going to invest. We're going to give you a little money. We're going to work you out. We're going to redshirt you. And you'll play a little bit your freshman year, sophomore. By your junior, senior year, you'll be a star for us. Nobody does that. You know why? They all leave. They all leave. It doesn't matter if you gave a player. I've given guys scholarships that did not have another Division I scholarship. And you're like, they got to be so thankful. Like, no. Second they can get more money elsewhere, they leave. That's the reality of it. Bill Cowher is operating in an alternative universe. Again, somebody send me, I guarantee somebody listening, I'd like to know how many players at Ole Miss are seniors that started their careers at Ole Miss. I'm going to guess the number is less than 10. Less than 10. So Lane Kiffin being about Lane Kiffin, he stayed there the last 6 years, dude. He could have left last year. He didn't. He left because he's going to be at a job where there is no amount of money they're not willing to spend in order to win. And I'm sure that on some level there's a frustration there at Ole Miss because they just don't have the depth of boosters, the depth of in-state talent. They don't have the resources they have at LSU. That's the reality. And nobody comes up to you after you lose a game and go, hey, how much did you have in NIL? You know, no one asked me last year. There wasn't a single person who wrote an article torching what we were doing that goes, hey, how much did you have in NIL? And how much did the other guy have? Keep in mind that half my NIL broke his ankle 10 games in the season. Nobody said that. So stop with the, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. I don't like how this stuff goes. Lane Kiffin is actually, he was there 6 years. That's a long time in college football. And as much as no one likes him leaving and going to a conference school, the fact is that players now can go to conference schools. They just can. The timing of it is awful. The calendar sucks. That can be changed and fixed. And many of these things can be remedied. Additionally, if you fix the transfer portal, and here's how you fix it. You have to sit out a year when you transfer. If you do that, all of these things, the coaching moves, aren't that big a thing. They're just not. Do I think he's the world's greatest coach? No, I think he's done a really good job of resurrecting a career that used to be a punchline, and he's made himself, he's figured it out. That's awesome. And he's going to a place that has endless resources. You may feel empty if you do win at LSU because it's a win. All they want to do is win. They don't care about process or anything else. They don't care about who they do it with or how it goes. But I absolutely think he should have been allowed to coach his team. Again, if nothing else, it gives Ole Miss the best chance to win. And the likelihood of Ole Miss being in this position anytime in the next 10 years, 15 years, is not strong. You got a chance to win a national championship. Let the coach win the national championship. And if he wants to leave, he can leave. Don't think it's that hard. He's still going to recruit players off your roster. All those same kids. Now they lose. They'll be like, man, we should have kept Lane. I'm going to go play with Lane.